let's go a little bit deeper into this story. You mentioned Gary Kubiak, right, Troy, on how Kubiak might be able to develop some of these players. How much do you think Kubiak will be allowed to pick the ingredients?
Oh.
Well, I do think in the case with he and John Elway that there's a much more open dialogue and an agreement on the type of players they want. Where with Fox and Elway, and I only was doing it for 1 year this last season,
the beat writer,
there was only this, it was a feeling that Elway gave Fox pieces that Fox didn't necessarily want or believe were ready.
Yeah.
And there was a disconnect there. Not constant friction or argument, but there was definitely a difference of opinion on some of the younger players.
Yeah, when you look at Cody Latimer, I mean, we're talking about a guy who had a sensational college career. We're talking about a guy who's an amazing athlete, and a guy that you would have thought at least could have contributed big time on special teams. He was there occasionally, but the fact that Cody Latimer never saw the field had to be infuriating to number 7.
Well, it was, especially around the goal line. When we watched him in training camp, you're like, this guy, 50-50, the alley-oop pass.
Right.
This is a weapon for Peyton Manning on the goal line, man. And he wasn't even in training camp and in scrimmages, and then he had a great preseason. And then all of a sudden he disappears, and I was told continually it's because he wasn't comfortable with the playbook, and if you're not comfortable with Manning in the playbook, you don't get on the field. But Kubiak's playbook is going to be much easier for a young guy to get on the field. But that's coming from Kubiak.
But wait a minute. That's not on John Fox. That's on Peyton Manning.
Well, it goes back to Gaze. Right, it goes to Gaze.
Right.
It goes, it's down the food. It falls down.
Sure.
It's Fox not knowing if Latimer can grasp the offense, Gaze saying he's not grasping the offense, and Manning saying he doesn't want anyone on the field that doesn't know the offense.
I don't know if I 100% buy the notion that Fox didn't want to play these young players because he couldn't develop them. Okay? He developed Brandon Marshall pretty well.
Right.
Talking about the coaching staff did. They developed Danny Trevathan pretty well.
Sure.
They developed Chris Harris pretty well, and C.J. Anderson pretty well. So I think John Fox did a pretty good job of developing players.
Well, I would think it was just unique to last year's draft for whatever reason. Because, it's not like when I covered baseball, Dusty Baker, there's certain managers that could not stand young players. They just would not play them. They didn't believe them, and they didn't trust them.
Is that why he chewed too many toothpicks?
Yeah.
Because every time I saw a young player on the field, he'd start going at it?
Not off. So in this case last year, Fox clearly didn't want the younger players on the field. And it hurt them though because they had no depth, and they ended up grabbing Todd Davis off of waivers to start at linebacker because they had no faith in Lamine Barrow or Corey Nelson.
Yeah, I remember you and I were leaving the game in Cincinnati, and we're like, who led the Broncos in tackles in this game tonight? Todd Davis, and the jokes were running wild. I mean, Troy and I are funny guys, so the jokes are just running wild about who is this Todd Davis guy who couldn't even play for, was it New Orleans?
Yeah, the New Orleans, who needed defensive help.
So there was a lot of question marks there, but the Latimer thing, I mean, there was a play, I remember last year, he runs out, and the ball almost hits him in the back. And I'm sure when that happened, Peyton, Gaze, up to Elway was like, all right, let's the same for next year.
It was like a United Way commercial.
It was.
He got that United Way spot.
Get